Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our series of Learning to Code with P5. Today in this video, we will be talking about a new function called map, and we will learn what it actually does, how can it help us, where we can use it, and actually how. So let's get started. All right, so before we dive right into what exactly a map function does, let me give you a scenario, something that we have all been familiar with, and then we can talk more about how we can use the map function and where. Just a quick reminder, make sure that you've remixed your project. My project is already remixed and I've named it. Make sure that you do that before beginning. So let's begin, okay? We all have sort of played around with certain kind of keywords and variables that exist in our P5 library, right? So maybe a good example here would be creating a circle and using certain keywords such as playing around with, maybe let's just create a circle at the center of our screen. Here, this is the most simple one that we have sort of worked with already, right? Now, as we can see, these two are a bit dynamic, right? Because we haven't given it a hard-coded number, but this circle here has a fixed diameter of 100 pixels. But let's say we want this diameter of the circle to change based on the position of my mouse, right? We have already worked with a pre-existing variable here, which is mouse X, right? So now, depending on where, oh, interesting, wait, let me also add a background so that might be easier for us to see. Okay, so based on which position my cursor is, like where exactly, if it's on the right side or the left side, basically, right? The change is going to be evident here, right? So now you can see that the position of my mouse is impacting the diameter of the circle, right? It is right now 0, the position of my mouse is 0, and so I can see a very like small one, and this is kind of maxed out here. And interestingly, okay, so, you know, here we know that we can also print out just to see like a corresponding what exactly is the X position of the mouse. So we can literally see that in our console as well. And if you remember, we have this command option I as a shortcut, or we can also do Control-Shift-I. So right now it's 0, we can't see anything on our screen. It's like a mere dot at the center. And the minute I start moving, you can also see it being changed in the console as well, right? The values are being changed, right? I'm going super fast, but you can see there's some lag, but it is kind of going up and showing the values. So I'm going to close it for now, just for you to have a reference. So in case if you want to know values of something, you can always, you know, use your console to help you. All right, so in this case, now, when my cursor is exactly on the left side, which is the smallest size I can see, and here is the biggest one, but maybe I don't want the circle to go as big as it is going right now, right? Because it's taking up exactly the maximum value of the mouse. Maybe I just want my circle to, let's say, begin with this size and perhaps end at this size. But then I still want to utilize the entire canvas, right? Like I need to, or I would want to have the freedom of moving my mouse all the way to, on the entire canvas, and yet be able to control the size of the circle as I desire. So how can we kind of do that, right? This is where the map function comes in handy and super helpful. So you can always go back and check here. Well, it will be here somewhere. I'm just going to type and see. You can always go back and check in the reference. Here you can find out exactly how the syntax is or what are the kind of attributes that it can take. I'm going to quickly, it's not a very optimized sort of thing, and I can show you here better. And I've also left it here for your reference as well. So basically what this does is just like other functions, like we've been using circle, rectangle, like rect, we've been using line and so many of them. This one is a similar thing, which basically takes up 5 arguments. So what it is doing is it is using it is using the value of one range and converting it to create values for another range, right? So in this case, if we go back here, what I want to do is basically I want to use the value range of my mouse X, right? And I want to control a certain value range of the diameter of the circle, right? These are the two things that I'm here playing around with. This will going to be really be helpful here. And let me also put it down first. Okay, so this is the kind of structure that we will use. So the first parameter is basically the input, which is in this case is going to be our mouse X. Let's say here, of course, this is, I'm going to comment it out, but say I am using the input value range of mouse X, right? Because I'm using the position of my mouse to control something. So now what is the minimum range value of this range? Okay, 0. If I'm utilizing the entire canvas, right? So maybe 0 is the minimum that I can get here. The max value here is the width, right? Going from 0 all the way to the entire horizontal position of the canvas. And then I want this to output a certain minimum value and a certain maximum value. So in this case, let's say if I want at least this size for my circle and perhaps this, maybe we can, I'm just giving an arbitrary number. So maybe in this case, we can use somewhere around, I don't know, 50 and 400. Okay, so how can I actually use this, right? If you notice here, we have already used an existing variable, right? Like we can use this entire formula to be put in another variable, and let's call it diameter, right? Just because we will be using it for our circle. So I'm going to comment this one out just for now and see if we can, or maybe I should just copy pasting it. And instead of mouse X here, I will use the new variable that we have created called diameter. So what it is doing is that I'm saying, okay, create a circle at the center of the canvas and use the diameter, which is basically mapping the position of my mouse, starting from 0, going all the way to the width of the canvas, but it will ensure that the minimum diameter that we get of the circle is 50 pixels and the maximum diameter that we get is 400 pixels. So now if I move my cursor, you can see it hasn't gone all the way big or all the way out of the canvas, right? Now it is where we want it to be, right? There's a certain size that we wanted and we've controlled it. Of course, these are arbitrary parameters. If you kind of go from 0 to 200, you can see that it's starting from 50, but it's ending much smaller. And yet I am still able to move my cursor all the way from left to right. I'll just keep it a bit bigger for now. Okay, so this is one way of using it. Of course, this is a formula that you can use anywhere without you having to go through the trouble of calculating, right? Like, for instance, right now you can see that I am moving the window with the window of this one. And that means that the width of my canvas is changing as well. But I don't need to recalculate everything because the computer is doing it for us, right? So that's one. Maybe, just because we have learned a new thing, let's try and see if we can play around with it a bit more. So let's do maybe play around and add some color. I'm gonna put a no stroke here for now. Okay, and okay, so if to fill some colors in it for now, let's just give it, I don't know what this color would be. Okay, so right now we can see it is some shade of blue, right? What if instead of for our RGB color, maybe we can create another variable and use that variable in our fill function to control the color of the circle as well, along with the along with the position of the canvas. So let's try and do that. And right now, I mean, you can literally take anything else, but since we are working with just mouse X, so I'm just like picking up mouse X and I'm going to map it. So in this case, and I can show you the other way around as well, but first let's go ahead with mouse X. So I'm using the position of my mouse X, which is the input value. The range is minimum 0, the max is width. And what I can do here is that I can, if you remember in our RGB, the minimum is 0 and the max is 255. So I'm keeping it at that for now. And here I'm going to replace fill with this kind of value. So let's go here. Now, if I am moving, not only my mouse's X position is impacting the diameter of the circle, but it is actually mapped to certain kind of colors that we are controlling in terms of the color of the circle, right? So there's a range of color that we have identified, and that's impacting it. What if, I mean, you don't have to go small in terms of, because it's a minimum value, you can literally reverse that too. So what that does is that I have reversed it. Okay, the minimum value here, the minimum output I've put here is 255 and the max output is 0. So it has technically reversed that position. So you can do that as well, and it's totally fine. All right. And let's say if you just wanted to keep, okay, let's not do this. If you wanted to do, you know, let it impact like height wise. So this is not changing a lot of color, but the minute I move my cursor up and down, it's going to change the value. So it totally depends what is the kind of value that you're putting in. And I'm going to keep it X for now. And what kind of interaction that you want. All right. So another thing that we can kind of play around with is, of course, I've showed you that you can control size, you can control colors. It's totally up to you. You could have just done it in your background color as well, and it would have changed the entire color of your canvas. Like this is just a function that you can use depending on the need. Or okay, let's maybe try. I'm gonna give another example. So let's see if we make our circle a bit more, you know, moving with our mouse. So here, what we can do is, let me create another variable and let me comment this one out because it was for that one. Maybe, and these are just different examples that I'm showing you. You could totally replace them as well. So if I map mouse Y, 0 and height here, and then I'm setting the range between 0 to 200. That is basically the size of the circle that will be controlled, because I'm putting this mapped value in the diameter here. So what would happen in this case is I'm still using the fill-in function. So now you can see how small it has gotten. Again, because I have mapped my my mouse Y position in this case. So now you can see the minute I go down, it's whatever the maximum size of the circle is. And now you can also see that it is also impacting, you know, the color as well, because again, the R value is determined by the X position as well. So an interesting, cute little thing that you can do is if I comment this out, the background, which means that my background is not being continuously refreshed anymore, right? It's the first by default one that's set up. And now you can suddenly see some trails happening. And maybe a more fun way to do would be if I just comment out the no stroke here. And now you can see how much longer you stay at one position, your frame kind of keeps on getting refreshed. So you can see your stroke being really dark over there because it's repeatedly at the same place or not. So you can literally create whatever you want through this. All right, so this is also just playing around with some map functions. you can practice and see where you can use it, how can you use it, and try to play around with this. And I'll see you in the next lesson.